Hello and welcome to the Life and Fight of a podcast. My name is Jake Cross from Empire Grappling and UK Fighting Championships. I'm joined as ever with my co-host Simon from Hi BJJ.
What's up, guys?
And we've got a special guest today, Richard Shaw, formerly of Tillery Combat, now of Shaw Mixed Martial Arts Academy. How's it going, Richard?
Hey lads, how are you doing? Glad to be on you.
Awesome. So a few weeks ago, we had Huel on, who's one of your students and one of your friends and Jack's friends, who's the MC for Cage Warriors. You got in touch saying that you wanted to get on as well. So let's get to know you a bit more. As always, let's start right at the beginning. How did you get into this sport? We know you've been part of it for a very long time at the minute.
I've dabbled in and out with martial arts since I was a kid. When I was very young, I did judo for a couple of years, but that tended to fizzle out. I then played football for quite some years. While playing football, I was working in pubs and clubs, and there was a couple of doormen. We had a lad there that was a black belt in judo, a lad that was a black belt in karate. Yeah. We had an amateur boxer, and we started doing just a little bit of mixing up training. We used to do that 2-3 times a week up in one of the function rooms of the pubs. And I did that up until I was about 29. And then I got introduced to jiu-jitsu, and that just totally turned my life around then. It totally turned my martial arts experience on my head. What I used to think it was quite a handful then, somebody who could look after themselves. And then an old school friend of mine, we bumped into each other in a leisure centre, having a chat. He says, "You still training regular?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you want to grapple?" And I said, "Yeah," thinking that I'd wipe the floor with him. And I had my ass whooped, to be honest. Anybody that's done jiu-jitsu for the first time, you feel like you're drowning, and it's a perfect analogy of it. You can't breathe, you can't work out, you're trying to overuse your strength, and he must have submitted me 5-6 times within 3 minutes, and I've had to ask him to stop because I couldn't breathe when I'd throw. And this is after doing 3 sessions a week, probably for 10 years of hitting pads, doing some judo in the gi, doing a form of it. We didn't know what MMA was back in those days, but we were doing some, fighting with strikes on the ground. But this just, it blew my mind. And that was my introduction. And I never looked back then, to be honest. I started training the following week, 5 nights a week, and it absorbed my life a little bit, if I'm honest. I became a little bit OCD with it.
Was there a club like local to where you were living at the time then? Yes,
so it was a traditional club called Falcons Martial Arts. They produced some good fighters back in the day. Joe Duffy was there when I joined, who's an established UFC fighter. Yeah. So I turned up for the first class because Steve said to me, "Come on up. I've been training there a couple of years now." And it was a traditional jiu-jitsu club, but they were under the Taijutsu Kai umbrella. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but it's run by a gentleman called Ross Inakaru, who was in charge of grappling strike back in the day, the MMA events. So Ross had done a lot of work with Carly Gracie at the time. He was the first person to bring Carly over to the UK and train. So there was a massive amount of groundwork involved in the traditional syllabus. So, in my mind, I'd watched the UFC videos. I thought I was doing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, but it was, in essence, it was traditional Jiu-Jitsu with a lot of groundwork. So I walk into this room. There's probably 20 people in there. There's probably 7 or 8 adults. The rest are young lads between 13 and 16. And I just got submitted by everybody in the room, the kids included. So I remember my first grapple with Joe Duffy, and I just did not know what was going on. He was a young 15-year-old kid then at the time.
Oh, wow.
So that was my first introduction. Now, what I always say to my students, the learning curve I had from that is that you can either think, this is going to make or break. I go back to my comfort zone, training in the function rooms with the guys I've been training with for the last 10 years, or I can really try and work out why these kids are playing with me, for want of a better term. They did as they pleased with me, and I was a strong, fit lad at the time, but just could not do anything with it. But that, I fell in love with it straight away. It blew my mind.
So I guess that humbles you, and obviously being an adult at the time, like you say, late 20s, early 30s, and then these kids are mauling you, for a better word. It does humble you, but I guess you'll probably find that now as a high level teacher, all these students come through the door, trying to make sure people get past that sort of barrier of being humble, because it does affect your ego a little bit when you first start, and everyone says like, leave your egos at the door, but some people struggle to do that and they go, it's not for me, I need to go.
It's spot on.
What would you say to anyone that's sort of stepping through the door from your experience, and obviously having so many students through the door now?
I always say to them, you know, come in and enjoy it, but I make it clear to them, you're going to have the shock of your life if you've never done anything before. These situations will make or break the individual, because it's difficult to coach somebody's mindset. So people are either going to come in with an open mind and thinking, you know, I've had my ass whooped by these youngsters and people that I got 20, 30 kilograms in weight on. I'll learn the art because it's obviously a very formidable art. Or your ego says, let's stay from there because I still want this reputation. You know, I come from a small community in the Welsh Valleys, and there's some tough guys up there, and I probably had every hard man in the area has come through my door sometime or another. Many have stayed, but there's many that have just disappeared as well at the same time. So it's a make or break scenario. You can either jump into it and try and learn the trade, or you can go from there and go back and live in your bubble, really. So I always say to people, come in, trust me, coming through the door is the hardest part. Try and enjoy the process. I'm fortunate, I got a lot of experienced guys. You know, in general, we've not got any arseholes training on the mat. You know, there's nobody there trying to prove a point if a big fella comes through the door. They're quite a unique group. I've got different guys who I could say, like, jump in with the beginners as higher belts. But I just say, come in, enjoy it, but be prepared, because it's going to be an experience that you've never experienced before. So it's the only thing I really, best advice you can give anybody, isn't it? Is expect the unexpected, really, when you jump on a mat with that little 60k blue belt in the corner.
They're the ones that do baffle your head the most, because it's like, it shouldn't be physically possible. But they are the ones that are scary people, where if they carried on all the way to black belt, wow.
yeah, spot on.
It's one of them, wasn't it? Like, in it, like they say, leave your ego at the door, but that's always a lot easier said than done, especially for someone who might not necessarily have sort of experience training in martial arts, but they've, like you say, they've got a reputation in their area. Yeah. They've been lifting weights for a certain amount of years. They deem themselves as being sort of this kind of character. And then they come through the doors and they get put through a hard time, and they get put in situations that really questions their choices.
Yeah.
And I've always found it sort of talking them down from that kind of thing, and as opposed to just sort of, do you know, where you sort of being like leaving to the wolves, which is like the old school mentality. It's kind of like, now you've got a lot of gyms have the capability to sort of ease them into it and sort of coax them in a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's come from the sport growing, Simon, isn't it? We're a lot more experienced on how we deal with these things. And also as well, I think the Joe public are much more aware of grappling through, you know, BT Sports and the UFC being on mainstream TV, and Polaris being on television, which is a local Welsh setup with the grappling side of it. Yeah. So people come in now with a bit more understanding. I mean, bloody hell, 15, 20 years ago, they would come in with absolutely no knowledge of what you know, jiu-jitsu was. And you can see, like you said, big muscular lads that just would think, oh, you know, I've had it said to me, listen, mate, you'd never keep me on the floor. I'd just pick you up and throw you off, you know. But it's a lot easier now, because I do a lot with the local rugby teams, believe it or not. I do a lot of contact sessions out of seasons. So we work on the wrestling. And that's been a big eye-opener for a lot of people in the community as well, that they come there, and I'll bring in 2 or 3 of my smaller lads that'll manhandle some of these 17, 18 stone guys. But there's a lot more awareness around it now than what it was, I think, 15, 20 years ago. So it's easier to get somebody to accept the situation a bit more than, as Simon said, their ego and their attitude makes them stay away from the gym. They don't want to experience that again.
Yeah.
What teams are you working on the rugby scene then in Wales?
Just local ones. I've worked with Newbridge rugby team. I've done some with Abertillery, Brynmawr, Nantiglow. I've done one of the regional teams. I work with the under-18 Dragons squad. Done a bit of work with those kids. Because there's a lot of crossover now, isn't it? You know what I mean? And just little techniques on how to put somebody that's much bigger than them on the floor. And, you know, they seem to enjoy it. And it's something different. It's a fresh face, a fresh voice for them. And they come from a totally shattered and a little bit bamboozled sometimes at this old 40-year-old fella can put them on their backside when he wants, you know. So it's a good learning curve for those lads as well.
I've found, I've been in the sport around 11, 12 years now, and the last decade I feel like it's leaps and bounds, like you say, BT Sport and all the access you get. You will probably agree, being in a lot longer than us, that the mainstay of or the beginning of sort of jiu-jitsu and MMA in the country was around the south side, London. Then it sort of splitted out a little bit. The north is leaps and bounds compared to what it was 10 years ago, north of England. Wales, in the sort of last 5 years, seems to have jumped ahead of a lot of it, especially South Wales, you being a part of it. When did you sort of realise that the bubble had sort of popped? I think we're still in a bubble compared to most people, but it seems to have grown so much in sort of the last 5 or 10 years for Wales.
I think it's probably because we're a smaller country. Do you know what I mean? So if somebody does well, you know, like we've had, you know, if we talk about MMA, we've had Jack Marshman, Brett Johns, Jack Shaw, John Phillips all get into the UFC. The press and the local news stations have had a field day on that, so that's raised their profile. On the grappling side of it, you know, Polaris is run by a group of Welsh guys, Tatami Fightwear, that have put a lot of money into the local clubs. So again, I think it's probably just the media coverage is probably twitched. Difference again, you know, I keep going back to like the olden days, but back when I started, if you wanted to have a look at an MMA match, or you had to go and buy a videotape off the internet if you were lucky enough to have a computer and internet in the house with a dial-up. Whereas today, you've got so much access to social media is constantly throwing MMA and jiu-jitsu into the limelight. You've got your YouTube channels. So, you know, at the click of a button, you've got full access to libraries and libraries of fights and training techniques. So that's probably, like I say, I got a lot of jiu-jitsu geeks, you know. I got kids with me that are really intelligent lads, you know, because they spend half their life on the bloody internet. That's how they've got into coming to my gym, and they'll go away and they'll turn up and they'll show, you know, I got white belts and blue belts. They'll come, oh shit, come and have a look at this. Something they've seen on the internet. They've worked with their partner on for a couple of weeks, and it's something I haven't seen before. So it's ever growing. But I think the internet and the local media have had a massive impact in Wales more than anything.
What do you think of the sort of the revolution of the internet with the techniques? Sort of like I find it quite a part of the beauty of the sport is how the sort of message and the words spreading at a much faster pace than sort of like back in the day when it was, we can't show these techniques to this gym and we can't do this to here.
Yeah. It was a little bit enclosed back. Yeah. I think it's brilliant. But what I will always say, though, you probably agree, Sam, you know, your experience with jiu-jitsu, it'll never replace the actual feeling of the technique. You know, if you have a Roger Gracie or a Broly or SMR show you a choke from mount or sweep from guard, it's totally different. You're watching some video and practicing with your mate for several hours on it, you know. Yeah. So nothing wrong with having a look at the jiu-jitsu. But what I always advise is, if it's something you want to have a look at, bring it, show it me, and we can tweak it. And, you know, I'm happy to have a look at it with you. But don't go like trying something in a competition just because you've watched it on a video and you've tried it a few times with your mate when you stay behind after training for half hour. You know, it's important that you have the right detail on it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So, in your experience when you started training and stuff, if I've got this right, and I presume I have from Tapology, Pain Pit was your show, is that right? But it was originally called Samurai before that? Right,
so what happened was I'd started my own MMA team, and I'd obviously been fighting on a circuit, and I'll be honest, it was shit in Wales. The events, the way they were run, it was awful. So I just got to a point where I thought I could do this job 10 times better than any of these guys are. So I booked a small sports centre, 450 capacity, and I ran a show and I called it Samurai Fight Night. So I did that. After my first show, the council stopped any MMA events being held in the area again because some council, a bit of a dictator, had not liked what he'd seen and said it's the usual human cockfighting and it's not recognised by Sport Wales. So I had to move out of the area. I'd done a couple of shows over in Aberdeen, which I think Howell spoke to you about that. That was his first event that he'd went to. And they went well, but what happened then, it was one of my students, Colin Mould, and me got into a chat, and he'd already run an MMA event in Newport. He said, let's try a big venue and we'll run it together, and that's where Pain Pit came from. So the first event we done was sold out. I think we'd done like over 1,000 tickets. And what I always used to try and put in place is a grassroots show, know your place in the market. So there was none of the, you know, singing, dancing, flashing lights, big screen. It was good quality matchups, a 24-foot cage, a UFC referee, Mark Goddard trained judges, big changing areas and warm-up areas, over the top security so everybody felt safe, and no gaps in the show. You know, I've seen us put an 18 card fight on in 3.5 hours if the fights have all gone quickly. So I was doing Pain Pit for some years. That was going well. And again, as with everything, it's a learning curve. I mean, we put a show on one day on a Six Nations International Day, and that was the biggest mistake ever in Wales because we lost a shed load of money on that one. But then, you know, I've always had a good relationship with Graham Boylan. That was due to me having fighters on the circuit. And he asked me about maybe joining up and doing something together. He came down, watched one of the events. We went out, had a cup of coffee and a bit of food, and the rest was history. We shook hands on the deal, and we worked well for that. But it was a 4-year anniversary yesterday of our first event, Cage Warriors Wales.
Oh, nice. So I'm just looking at the first card that you put on. Is it around August or May 2010?
Yeah.
Chris Edwards was your main event. And it just shows how long he's been in the sport now. Yeah. And Jack Marshall was your co-main event. What was it like sort of putting on your first event back then, looking back in hindsight, and then knowing that these guys are still going and how far some of them have got?
Yes, it's a bit surreal. You know, we put on this little leisure centre show, and it was, like I say, it was a little sports show. The show went brilliantly. You know, it ran smoothly, some good quality matchups. But you know, if you'd said to me then 10 years ago, in 10 years' time, you'll have one of the highest profile organisations in Europe with Cage Warriors running regular events with you part of it, or if you'd said me, you'll have 4 Welsh guys in the UFC. It was, you know, you would not even give it a second thought. It was a distant dream. I always believe we get there, but I didn't think we'd get there as soon as we did. But I just think we're in a really good place. I think there's some good people around in Welsh MMA and Jiu-Jitsu for that. There's some good clubs out there, you know, not just my own. You know, you've got the Chris Reese Academy. Lou Long's got a fantastic team at the Matt Academy. You've got the Cox boys down in Port Talbot doing brilliant things with nails. You've got lots of jiu-jitsu clubs around. You've got Celtic Pride. I can go on and on. The area is really, really strong at the moment with regard to both BJJ and MMA.
Mm. I guess the great thing about South Wales is it's a stone's throw away from like London and stuff, so the big events. So it's easy to get the guys good competition experience. Do you feel like there's a divide, not a divide as in a negative way, but more a divide in between Welsh, sort of southern and northern Wales in relation to how far it's come? Do you think that the southern side is leaps and bounds ahead of the north, and you're trying to pick it up a little bit?
No, I don't. I think it's down like how Wales is set up. North Wales populate, you know, the majority of the Welsh population is in South and West Wales. It's a lot more rural up in North Wales, so they don't have the numbers, to be fair. But you know, there's some good lads from up that neck of the woods. I know the Welsh IMAF team have got several guys from the North Wales scene. I just think we are fortunate, as you said. The Severn Bridge is only a 40-minute drive from Newport, so it's easier for me to. Then again, mind you know, up in North Wales, they got access to the gyms in Liverpool and Manchester. They're not a million miles from them guys. I know a lot of the North Wales lads travel across and train with Paul Rimmer and Chris Fishgold and people like that. So. Well. You know, they've got access to quality training.
It's just having that willingness to travel into it and sort of try and find the pockets of areas that are willing to train at.
Yeah. It's tough to cross train as well, believe it or not, because it's easier for me. It's easier for me to drive to Birmingham than it is to North Wales. It takes me half the time. Wow. Now, for me to drive, and my uncle lives in Harlech. I'll use Harlech, which is very North Wales. I think it's 130 miles from Abertillery to Harlech, but the drive is nigh on 3.5 hours because it's all mountain singular roads. Whereas, you know, I drive 20 minutes to the motorway and then I'm straight up to Birmingham within 80, 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So again, it's the fact it's so rural up in North Wales. They do struggle with a lot of the guys travelling up and down to train.
Yeah, you're not wrong, obviously. I know with the IMAF side, you work with Aaron Abbey, who's one of my business partners at UKFC, and obviously I know a lot of his guys are sort of, they train with Jason Tan at MMA Academy in Liverpool. And then you've got the guys like Azzy Thomas with Hammer, and then also the guys that work with Rimmer as well. It's good that they've got that connection, and I feel like that's what makes them grow, because in due course it'll sort of come back full circle. They will grow and become bigger. And one thing that I did like in the last sort of couple of years is that I do like the Team GB or the Team UK aspect, but I feel like Wales and Scotland and definitely Ireland have got the right strengths within each other to create their own team. So I was happy when Team Kimru became about it. I know you was a part of that. What sort of what started and what made that become?
It was more Chris Reese and me, to be honest. I was approached. I'm a busy man, I'll be honest with you. I've got a full-time gym. I've got a lot of fight. And I would be doing the Welsh team a disservice if I said, yeah, go on, I'll help out with the coaching, because I'm one of them guys that if I'm going to do something, I've got to be able to give it 100%. And I don't want to be the guy to say, oh, I can't make this training session because I'm away with a certain fighter, or I can't make that training session because I'm away doing a seminar. So I help out when I can. They use my gym for the last get-together for the training session. They got good guys. I think Wayne Arandovich and Alex Smith-Warren are the two coaches now for the Welsh MMA team. I think Chris Reese is like overseeing everything. I think it was necessary because it's growing sport now, the amateur side in particular. You know, I could fill a Welsh side out just from the youngsters I got in my gym without anybody else. Do you know what I mean? So just to have the UK team and only 2 from each weight division, I think was probably doing a bit of a disservice to the rest of the fighters that were genuinely good enough to go out there and compete. So I think it's a good idea having the Welsh, English and the Scottish teams. What I will say is we're still not the finished article. In an ideal scenario, like I've been to the IMAS with Jack back in 2015 and we were all there, the UK team, no set uniform, no set kit, you know, we didn't look like a team. We looked like a bunch of misfits that had turned up, thought, right, let's pop over to the IMAS and join it. Some quality fighters there, some quality coaches there, but no funding. Then you'd look at the Sweden team, and they'd all have their own tracksuits. They'd all been paid to come and compete. You know, none of the athletes had to put their hand in the pocket to pay for the hotels or the entrance fee, and it's not cheap. I think it's anything between £500 and £1,000 to enter an IMAF competition, depending on where in the world it is, with flights and hotels. So I think we're missing recognition of Sport Wales, which we're a million miles from, because there's still so many two-bob shows doing all sorts of rule sets, and clubs not willing to buy into becoming a unified group under an umbrella of something. But funding is going to be the key one for us to really see the sport grow. You know, in an ideal world, it would be like the Olympics, where you could employ 2 coaches to be a full-time British or Welsh or coaches, and once a week they could travel around. You know, I think we need to have more events as a qualifier to get in that team as well. That's one thing that I've brought up, and it's a bugbear in me. I don't like the idea of trials. You know, us 3 could go to a trial. I could be the worst fighter out of the 3 of us, but I've had a good night's sleep. I've had a good rest. I've got no injuries. Simon could turn up. He's pulled his knee on Thursday, and he's had to work a night shift 2 days before, and he has a bad day at the office that particular day. Yeah. Whereas if it's done in a competition format, there's no arguing. The best 2 fighters have gone through and earned their place in the team. So that's what I would like to see, is a competition format in place where if you're going to represent your country, you've had to fight to get that place. Because we're the best will in the world. Wales have been guilty of it, and England, where you've got amateurs with only like 2 or 3 fights experience representing their country. Perfect example for me, when Jack fought in the IMAFs in 2015, in the semi-final he fought a Bulgarian who had 40 amateur fights.
Oh wow.
You know, and it's a big difference, you know.
Yeah.
I got lads that have been, you know, I've been approached, can I have some of the youngsters in the team? And I've said no, because they've only had 2 or 3 fights. Come back in 18 months' time when they've now up to 8, 9, 10 amateur fights, a lot more experience, physically a bit more developed, and I'll be more than happy for them to go. But there's no point in entering these things just as a taking part. It's supposed to be the ultimate, isn't it, amateur, the IMAF? So if you're going to go there, you should go there with the mindset that you're going there with a real belief that your team can win.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I think 2015 was the year when Jordan Chester and Carl Burton was on the same Team GB or Team UK team. And leaps and bounds. It's come on a lot in 5 years, but like you say, the money it costs to get over there, and especially now the world are now in Bahrain, which is the other side of the world. Yeah. Just to get over there is like £900 a flight, give or take, and you've got to try and make sure you've got a coach. I know a few people that have gone over there that literally don't know anyone because they've I think it was like Teddy Stringer went last time. I don't think he had one of his normal coaches there, and because it's not always easy access. It should be funded. It should be recognised, especially on that platform, because it's sort of a lower rule set than the amateur A is now because they wear the shin guards.
The shins,
it's a lot more protected compared to what amateur A now. Amateur A and pro debut. So if you're an amateur champion and then you're making your pro debut, it's probably a step down right now because how high a level the amateurs are.
Yeah, I agree.
I do agree that I feel like some of the champions around the UK circuit, Wales, England, Scotland, Ireland, should all be fighting each other to get it onto this platform. Like, for instance, our welterweight champion fight at UKFC fights someone from Almighty or whatever, and then they get into it if there's only one spot or however it works. And same with you with Cage Warriors Wales. It's a great platform to do that. With regards to your gym then, what do you feel like is the next step for you guys? Obviously, you've just changed from Tillery to Shaw MMA. Just explain how that came about.
Pretty much, we'd outgrown our premises. The name Tillery Combat came from was when I started my own gym back in 2008. It just didn't have a name, so we were from Tillery, so we'd been known as Tillery Boys. And I was stuck because we'd entered a lad and I had the promoter saying, you know, what's the name of your team? And I've just gone Tillery Combat. And the name stuck, and it served us well. We built up a great reputation, but the reality is we moved premises. I just felt it was a time for just a bit of a rebranding. We've now got 3 fighters from the gym in the UFC. I've got numerous amateur champions. I've got numerous contracted Cage Warriors guys. I've got good level, high level grapplers, and I just felt it was just to raise the bar in professionalism a little bit. And we called it the show, and it also ties in with the success our Jack is having. The name, and I make no illusions into that. He's become probably one of the most recognisable faces in Wales now, and having the surname tagged onto the name of the gym is obviously going to help us with the customer base. So that was the main reason, just rebranding, trying to give our Jack's name into the gym a little bit, and we moved to a state-of-the-art facility. If you guys ever come and visit it, the facility we've got now is on a par with anything in Europe, if not the world. It wouldn't be out of place in the middle of America, the gym we've got.
Yeah. I've had a look at a few of the pictures, and the facilities you've got are amazing. Like 2 floors, is it?
Two floors. We've built a mezzanine floor. So the ground floor, we've got 166 square meters of rolling area, full-size competition cage, changing rooms for the men and entrance, and a sauna. Then upstairs, we got female changing rooms. We got a treatment room where we have a physio workout of now. We've got my offices in the corner, but then we've got a fully fitted fitness and strength and conditioning suite. So it's like walking into your average leisure. We've got 6 running machines, 4 cross trainers, 3 air dynes, 3 exercise bikes. We've got an AstroTurf front, pull track for doing your push and pulls. We've got every sort of weight training equipment you can ask for. So everything we've got everything under one roof now. So we've got the blueprint on how to get the UFC. Whereas before, sometimes we've had to travel for different things, such as a strength and conditioning. You can come to the gym now. We've got a fully committed Thai coach, a wrestling coach, a jiu-jitsu coach, MMA coach, strength and conditioning coaches there. We've got physios there. So we've got a perfect recipe if you want to be successful, and it's all under one roof, which makes it, the life so much easier. Some of the lads will travel from Swansea or Cardiff now. They can turn up at 9 o'clock in the morning. They'll do the morning session. Then they'll go and have some food, come back. They'll use the strength and conditioning area to do their training, go away, have some food, and then come back and do the classes in the evening then as well.
No, it's
like you say, there's you've already created a blueprint of how to get guys like UFC, like Jack. Now that you've done that without all this facility in one place, imagine what the prospects could be now you've got it all in one place.
Honestly, I'm not just saying it. I've got youngsters there, age range between 18 and 20, probably 17 and 20, and they're terrifying. If they commit and they don't go, because I've seen this a million times where I've looked at lads and gone, this kid is going to be the next one in the UFC, but then priorities change. He's gone and got some girl pregnant, or he's changed jobs, or he's just decided he'd rather have a weekend away with his mates than commit to a training camp. and they filter off. But if they continue the way they are, I've probably got half a dozen lads there that should be in the UFC in 5 years' time.
Oh, wow.
I'm not convinced of it.
Like a lot of the talent within the whole of the UK, and some of the young lads that I train with myself, scary talented, and they, like, the
thing is, Simon, they've got access now, haven't they, to top level training and coaching. You know, when I started, I was traveling everywhere because, you know, a black belt in jiu-jitsu, like the Holy Grail, you'd either have to go to London or Birmingham to find one, you know. Whereas now in Wales, I'm not sure, we must have at least 10, 15 black belts in Wales alone now, I'm guessing.
Shows the strength of the growth of the sport as well, and sort of as a culture, how everything's sort of growing in a positive way. And it's like I've seen like some of the young lads when they train and they'll pull something off, and I'm like, have you seen that? Like, where did you learn that? And he goes, it just made sense to do. Yeah. And I'm like, they're seeing shapes that they shouldn't be seeing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, though, again, is if, like, I've got a group of lads I've had since they were kids. And it becomes like a sixth sense with them, doesn't it? Because it's the norm. That's all they've known is grappling and rolling. I got a young lad there. He's 14. I hate singing his praises because he gets a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Young Johan Thomas. And that, like, he's 14 years of age, and I go out and I say this on every interview, he will be a UFC star. There's no ifs or buts in my mind. He's 14 years of age. He's 70K. He trains every night. He does every kids class, and also trains every single adult class as well.
Wow.
After that, one of the lads is taking him for strength and conditioning now as well, because he's keen to build up his body. He's got a brilliant attitude, humble. He's won like British titles in jiu-jitsu. He's won in MMA. He's one of these kids that, like, when the big strong guys come into the adult class and I go, have a roll with the young kid over in the corner. And it just blows it. He comes wrestling on a Thursday with the adult team, you know, and it's no joke our Thursday session. I say to all the hobbyists, it's something you want to do, but it's not a pleasant session. It's grinding, and, you know, it's hard sweat. You've got good elite pro level guys there. Everybody's welcome, but I'm open to say, because it can put some people off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kid is there competing with all of my the guys, and when I say compete, I mean competing. It's an even keel at 14 years of age. So he's got that mindset. I don't even think he'll be swayed by the other side with girls and drinks and you know parties. I really believe he's got the ability to be a star as well. I think he's going to be something special.
I guess you got to look at it as when you've got athletes coming through that are that young, you almost adopt like a mentoring role as well as a coaching role as well.
Yeah,
like,
spot on.
Like, what point did you sort of realise that was being added onto the coaching role, and how do you sort of balance that and manage that?
That was added on for me from day one, to be honest, because a lot of the guys that I started the gym with were referrals from the young youth offending team.
Okay.
So, you know, people like Marshman had come from the youth offending team, Martin McDonough. I had a lot of lads that had either been to young offending institutes or prison or were on the verge of going. And there was a lad called Christian Gay and Darren Davis. They were in charge of youth offender services. To be honest, they broke the mold a bit, because you can imagine if you've got lads that's got an ability to be violent in situations, you know, the Joe public would think, well, the worst thing to do is teach them how to fight. But the public, you know, particularly the community I live in, within months, had really bought into what we were doing, because they weren't having to throw these lads out of the pubs. They weren't having to ring me in the middle of the night to come and remove them from a nightclub. It just worked so well. So the mentor role in those days was brilliant. But them lads now are mentors to the youngsters coming through. You know, whenever I have because I still have referrals off the youth offending service. And if they come through, I'll introduce them to one of the lads that's been through the process for the last 10 years. So I always say to people, and I have this conversation in every podcast, when people say about who's the best coaches in the world, there's no such thing as a best coach. There's a best coach for you. Yeah. So someone might come out to my gym and our personalities, they click, we get on well, I take them under my way. But they may be like, you may come and think, oh, I don't like Shaky, we just not bouncing, you know. Yet you could go to a gym 2 miles down the road and you may get on great with that coach. So I never take it personally if fighters come and go. It's part of life. You know, we're all individuals, we're not going on. But I do, what you've just said there is spot on. When you're working with somebody so intensely, the mentor role is so important as well, because I think it's key that a fighter coach have a real trusting relationship. You know, not always a professional one. It needs to be personal as well in some terms if you're going to get the best out of that fighter.
Yeah. No,
I feel like, speaking to you as well, like, because like the small towns in Wales and everyone sort of knows everyone and it's easy for the word to get around in positive or negative way. I'm from Manchester, which is a big city. Not everyone knows everyone, and especially in the MMA sort of side, it's you probably knew one person, and in my area it was normally me. So, oh, Jake does that, or Jake's into that, or whatever. I've now moved to Lee near Wigan, and you probably know Tom Blackledge, who was in the UFC.
Yeah, no, Tom's come down and took a seminar for me once as well, a couple of years back when he was in the
Amazing. His gym is literally a 2-minute walk from me, and I've known Tom for a long, long time. And I was speaking to my next door neighbour, just going through some stuff, and he's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And he was like, "Oh, I've trained with Tom before." And because I'm now in a smaller town, everyone seems to know Tom, and in a positive light, and that's normal to have Tom in a positive light. And knowing what Tom's done for this area, even from being in Manchester anyway, it's nice to know that all these coaches around the country, including yourself, Tom, etc., that take these communities and build them and make them better, and it's always in a positive way. And like you say, the general consensus of these violent young offenders, the worst thing you would be is teach them how to technically kill people or maim people, but it breaks the ego, it breaks them down, it makes them more humble, and you'll probably get one bad egg, but 90% of the time you'd make it positive.
Yeah, you're right. And also as well, with these lads, all their, you know, for all their life they've been told they're going to achieve nothing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're in a positive environment. It's a fantastic outlet. If you've got an aggressive young male, the best place to put him is in a jiu-jitsu gym or a boxing gym. Let him vent that aggression in a controlled environment. I allow them to get to the point where they love coming to the gym. It's not just a training gym. It's a social side of it. Their friends there. All my guys, they train together, they eat together, they drink together, they go on holidays together, particularly the younger lads. So there's a real community within the gym. So they're all told in no uncertain terms, you're representing me when you're outside, when you're going out for a night out and everything else. So they all carry that worry that if they behave like a complete arsehole, they play. And I've done it in the past. I made an example of somebody, and I won't name names, but somebody who I was really, really close. I made an example of him and I kicked him out of the gym, and nobody thought I would do it. But he went because he'd been involved in a violent incident which he had started outside of the gym. And that's the only one I can count in 12 years that I've had to permanently throw out the gym. The message was made at that point. And, you know, as you said, you become more humble when you do this sport. I always say, if you give somebody the ability to fight, I'm confident, I'm an old man, but I'm still confident that I could handle a violent situation. So that's why I'm never in any street fights, because I don't feel a need to prove myself. You know, somebody calls me an arsehole in the middle of a pub, I'm quite happy to finish a beer and leave, because I don't need to set about the lad and start fighting to show the pub, well, I'm not an arsehole, you know. And I've tried to instill this into the youngsters, in as much as, if you want to prove to people you're a hard man, I'll get somebody to pay you some money for it. You can come and fight in a cage.
Yeah.
Don't do it where you're going to end up in court or end up in prison. And it's worth the treat. You know, I've had some real fantastic cases of lads where the community didn't give him a chance. You know, Marshman's a perfect example. You know, he's had a successful army career. He's in the UFC. If he hadn't joined my gym, he'd be the first to tell you he'd be serving a lengthy prison sentence. There's no doubt in my mind.
I think another great thing about the sport is it kind of teaches you to control your emotions whilst under stress.
Agreed.
Like, you could be in deep water during a 10-minute round, and you'd be at the point of merging on panicking.
Yeah.
Sometimes people might be on the verge of tears or getting angry, but they know that if you respond in such a way, then you're going to get defeated. So you're kind of teaching yourself to control your emotions and control your actions, and having an outlet for it as well. It just kind of brings it all into one circle.
Agree. And it rounds you off as a person. I say this to everybody. I have as much pride. I've got like lads at my gym that's been with me 10 years. They're not MMA fighters, but they still do the jiu-jitsu. They come and do the Thai sessions, but they become really good, well-rounded individuals as human beings. And it's as important for me that you become a good person as it is a good fighter. You know, I don't want some arsehole that's a UFC champion, but is a dickhead with it. Do you know what I mean? I'm quite happy for him to go and join another gym, you know. So I think it's, you know, that's just me. I'm old school, you know. I know some people's take is not on it, but I've been brought up on old-fashioned values, and for me, the mark of the man is not how good you are in the cage or how good you are in the jiu-jitsu mat. It's how you are as a person in general as well, and I think that's key for life.
I think over 7 billion people in this world, everyone has that natural instinct of fight or flight. But I think once you know you can handle yourself, that you can defend yourself or fight if you needed to come to it, I think it brings that sort of relaxation to you. So if you are in a bar or wherever and you can sense something that's bubbling up, whether it's directed towards you or near you, you've got that sense of calmness where you can either it just diffuses the whole situation because of how calm you are, or you can probably step in to diffuse something that's nothing to do with you, but you can go, well, what's going on? And you can speak to people because you know if it does pick up, you can still calmly sort it out. But I've felt through friends as well that how calm they've been around situations compared to if someone calls you a dickhead or whatever. Who you talking to? That's what I've seen anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's across the board. I think Simon hit the nail on the head earlier. It humbles you. It changes your perspective on life, you know. And also as well, I think it makes you aware that the smallest guy in the pub might be the toughest guy in the pub. You don't really know these days, do you? You know what I mean? It's you know, I use Chris Edwards, one of my lads. You know, he's always messing around. He's joking. You wouldn't give him a second thought in the pub. Same as old Jack, you know. But if it came to a confrontation, the killers, you know. So again, we've been fortunate. We live in a closer community where everybody knows. So lots of my fighters don't tend to have the street fights then, because people know they are, and there's enough sense there to leave the guys alone. Plus the fact that we've got a team of 100+ students as well tends to work in our favour a little bit as well.
Yeah. So is Marshman under you then?
Is who?
Is Marshman under you, Jack Marshman?
Yeah. Jack's been with me since he was 15 years of age.
So I only because I've followed most of his career, so I watched him in his fight against Tom Watson at BAMMA 9. Then I actually went to BAMMA 10 when it was headlined between Sinclair and Winner when he beat Punchin. So that was the belt as well. When I think it's Watson just been signed by the UFC around that point.
Yeah, it's still a few years after that. He didn't get signed with the UFC until November 16.
Was it for the Lonsdale belt then, that title, or was it?
Yeah, that was a British Lonsdale belt. Yeah,
that's it. And I went for sort of Sinclair because he's from Burnley, and I was following him, went to London and stuff. But it was nice to see other fighters that I'd followed. I think Max Nunes was on that card as well. But I remember seeing Marshman, and I wanted him to beat Watson because I followed him before then. So the fact that he didn't fight after he won the Lonsdale belt, it felt a full circle for him.
He'd beaten Carl Noon to become the British champion, and if I'm honest, it was the Watson fight came and it was too much too soon. But we both felt it was a gamble that we'd have to take. You know, we knew it was a big ask. You know, Jack was only young then, early 20s, but he could hit like a mule, so he was always in with a puncher's chance, and Tom would come and strike. But that was for the world title. You know, and he was just a little bit too young and too inexperienced at the time, and Tom was a better fighter, you know. But he learned a lot from that as well. He regrouped, he went on, he had a good career then with Cage Warriors, ended up with him winning the world title on Cage Warriors, and it was November 16, I think, then we made the debut in Belfast.
Wow. So we want to touch on Jack being your son and the UFC and Cage Warriors and stuff like that. But just before we do that, what was it like getting your first guy signed with UFC? What did that mean? How did it come about? And how did it sort of create relationships from what you have now?
I felt that your likes of Jack, your likes of John Phillips should have been signed long before they were. You know, we're unfashionable as a country, Wales. You know, we haven't got an arena where the UFC can come and put an event on. Yeah. All these things, I think, play a factor into the machine that is the UFC. But I worked out, you know, as a coach, I'd worked out that if you're successful with Cage Warriors and you get that world title, there's always a chance you can get that signed, you know. Yeah. So he'd won the world title. He was due to defend it in, I think it was the end of October on the Newport Centre show in Wales, one of the live events. And 4 weeks before that event was due, Graham rang me and said, the UFC had asked about him taking a fight against Siedenblad on the Dublin card. You know, wasn't even up for thought. We took it, but I had to pull over. I won't lie, I'd say it straight away. I pulled over and I literally cried for 2 minutes because it was like like a pressure valve had gone off. It was like, at last, we've done it. You know, we've been trying for 10 years. And I've been saying to everybody, we're going to get this call. We're going to get this call. It'll come. You've just got to be patient. And to finally get your foot in the door, because I knew once we got one in, the rest would follow. You know, we'd broken that barrier, and it was an amazing feeling. And to walk out and the Belfast crowd really got behind him on that fight as well. You'd have thought you were fighting in Wales. So it was just a brilliant experience from start to finish. And it was a fairy tale ending as well. You know, we won and had fight of the night bonus. So it was just like everything had come together on, you know, over a period of a couple of weeks. It was a realization of 10 years of really, really working hard. And I say to everybody, if we can do it as an unfashionable club in the Valleys with no funding, no backing, no high-level coaches that we've got on the doorstep that we go and pick out. I've had to travel everywhere to get what we've got as a knowledge base of techniques. And it just showed, it was brilliant, because what that had done, it lifted everybody in my team. It was like, this is a goal we can achieve, you know. And as I said, I believe in 5 years, we'll, as a club on our own, I reckon we'll have 10 fighters in the UFC.
Yeah.
Wow. So what's
go on, Simon? So what's sort of, have your coaching methods changed, or your approach to coaching? Has it sort of had any major evolutions over the years, or have you kind of...
The main one for me, Simon, is that in the early days, I was doing everything. I was taking the striking, the rest. And as we've grown and as we've gone up the levels, I'm one of these coaches. I've not got no ego, and I think, right, if there's somebody that's better at teaching striking, I'll go and get that person in. If somebody can teach the wrestling better, I've got a fantastic team around me now. I've got a guy called Carl Parker, who's got like 30 years of wrestling and judo experience and MMA experience. He's been on the Welsh MMA scene for 20 years. He's joined the team full-time now, and he's my assistant coach with the MMA side of things, and he's the number one wrestling coach at the team. I've got a gentleman called Crew Heem. I'll tell you this was a bit of luck, really. This is like, the only way I try to explain to people this, it's like Abbott Lady football team having a training session, and Jose Marino pops across and goes, lads, I've just moved into the area. Do you need a hand with the coaching? So wow. I'm taking a striking class. I look over, and there's this little Thai fella on the side of the mat that's come into the gym. So I walk across, and he's with an older fella from Wales, you know, Welsh lad. And the Welsh lad says to me, "Oh, my friend has just moved over from Thailand. He used to be a coach over in Thailand. He's looking to get involved. And I've said, you're the best club in the area. Would you be interested in coming and giving?" And now you run a gym, Simon. I have people coming to my gym all the time telling me they've done this, they've done that, and 99 times out of 100 is a load of bull. So I said to him, where was you coach in Thailand? And he goes, "Oh, I was a head coach at AKA."
Oh, wow.
So I go, all right, this guy's bullshitting me. It's the first thing I thought. I said, "Oh, right, AKA, okay. Do you want to come next Tuesday?" I said, "Take a session. If it goes well, great, we'll sort something. If it doesn't go well, nothing ventured, nothing gained." And I'm still at this point thinking he's bullshitting me. So I asked him to write his name down. So he says, "I'll write my crew name down," because in Thailand they have their like birth name, and then they also have like, his name is Somkiat Chacho, I think that's how you pronounce it, but he's known right throughout Thailand as Crew Heem. So he's written Crew Heem down, and off he's gone. So I could go back onto the mat, start instructing. One of the boys goes, "I said, he's full of shit. He reckons he's one of the head coaches at AKA Thailand." I said, okay. So me and Jack come home. We have our shower. I said, "Type that guy's name into the internet." We put him in Google, and it's like this: page after page after page after page start coming up on him. Mark holding pads for Mark Hunt, Mixwick Fight Camp, you name it. He's fought with it. You know, he's videos in training, taking sessions at AKA Thailand, holding pads for some elite level UFC guys. I thought, Jesus Christ, I haven't took his phone number. So 2-3 days go by. I'm thinking, I'm just have to drive to Crickow, where he said he was living, and just wander around and ask people, "Do you know any little Thai guys that have just moved into the area?" But fortunately, he rings me. This was on the Tuesday. On the Saturday, he rings. He says, "Are we still on for Tuesday?" Yeah, brilliant. He came up, and it was just a level above anything I'd ever seen. A level above. And what happened was, he was coaching out there. A Welsh lady had moved to Thailand to do 2 years of teaching and was training at the gym. Fell in love, got married. She had to come back because her visa had finished, and he moved back into the area with her. So, wow. The chances of it, and I say this to everybody, I've been in this game a long time. He's the most high-level striking coach I've witnessed.
Wow.
His ability to break the technique down for an MMA-based fight as well, you know. So if I say Jack is fighting Mr. X, he will go and have a look at Mr. X and then come back and we'll tailor the private sessions with Jack for that style of fight. He's a little humble guy. He's had 130 plus pro fights, all in Thailand, so you can imagine the quality. But he's a short guy. He's got a brilliant personality, real cheeky little chap, you know. And again, another guy you wouldn't give a second look on the street. And he goes, I need a volunteer to hold pads. You can see everybody look at the floor because no one wants to hold the pads for him. But he's been a godsend. So we've had him come in and take care of our striking. I've got myself with the jiu-jitsu. I got a chap called Daryl James, who's a black belt, helps with the jiu-jitsu. And we just got a really good, well-rounded coaching team in. And also as well, another thing, you know, particularly at the higher level, the strength and conditioning comes into it. So I've got a full-time strength and conditioning coach working out of the gym now as well that works there full-time every day.
So let's touch on Jack then, because he's the highlight of Wales right now and probably will be for the future. Being his father and seeing him grow and obviously getting him to martial arts, because you're into martial arts, at what point, so what made you first want him to follow in your footsteps in the martial arts, and then at what point do you think he's going to be as good as he is or even better?
He started off doing kickboxing, and he'd done kickboxing from the age of 6 up to about 12, and he gained his black belt in kickboxing. I then started my own gym, and he started coming to the sessions there, started learning jiu-jitsu, started training with the men at MMA. You've probably seen the photos of him when he was a kid. He was a short, big mop-head, you know, chubby little kid that you would never think was going to be an athlete of any sort, let alone a fighter. But when you watched him spar, when you watched him grapple, I said, oh, it's putty fat. It's going to come off him, you know. His genetics, his mother's family are all fit guys. There's nobody that's massive on my side of the family. So I'm thinking this is going to come. And probably, I think, when he was 14 and you see him start to win British titles at jiu-jitsu and all this alongside playing rugby as well. He was a good rugby player. He captained the local team at under 14s and under 15s. And then at 15, he won the British Open again in jiu-jitsu. And I think he just had one of them light bulb moments. And he says, I'm going to give up the rugby and I'm going to really try and give this a go. Because Marshman was doing well now. Edwards was doing really well fighting abroad. Martin McDonough was close to signing for the UFC. But I would say probably at 16, 17, I would have said that I knew that he was destined to be in the UFC, just for how he had evolved as a competitor and as a martial artist.
And he's now, is it 25 now, is that right?
25 now, yeah.
So in that time, in between, obviously, he fought on your shows, building up the experience as an amateur. I think he's currently the same record as pro. He's 12-0 as an amateur, then turned pro. He did the IMAFs. He got all that great experience, especially at a time when it was not as big as it is now. Yeah. Then he turns pro. In his amateur career, what do you feel like were the biggest learning curves for him and you? I guess it's difficult being a coach and a father at the same time because there's that more of a worry about something could go wrong.
Yeah, I don't enjoy his fights, and that's right from the first ever amateur fight he's had right up until his UFC debut. I don't enjoy it at all. I enjoy the aftermath, and I love him doing well, and I'm over the moon for it. But the experience is awful for me. The week leading up to the fight, the actual day, particularly when he was like main event in them big Cage Warrior shows, you know, where there's 4,500 people there, and he wouldn't be on until 11:30 in the night. You know, it was a mentally draining fight. You know, watching him go through the weight cut is never pleasant as a father either. The biggest learning for me as an amateur was we needed, like, he had all the skill and the ability, but we needed to get his nutrition right and his strength and conditioning right. And then, like, as he hit 18, 19, you just see his body starting to change a little bit. He was eating the right foods. He was working with a lad that he's still with now as a strength and conditioning, Greg Callow. You know, he had all the skill, but from experience of working at the top level, there's some physical guys here, so we needed to make sure that he was capable to compete, not just like mentally in martial arts, but also physically with some of this, you know, the brute strength guys that were out there. But yeah, I think once we got his nutrition on point and his strength and conditioning on point, you know, he's like a sponge, you know, and he's one of these. He takes it personally. If you catch him in a submission, you know, he'll go away, he'll study that, he'll work on that, and you won't catch him again in it. You know, he's one of those type of kids as well. You know, he's always striving to be better than what he was yesterday.
Yeah, that's the recipe for reaching the top, really. That's fantastic.
So he wins gold at the EMAFs. He then turns pro. Obviously, I guess it's the right time for him to turn pro. But was that always the plan? Get the EMAFs out of the way, then turn pro.
He was even before the IMAFs, when he was 8-0, he was becoming more and more difficult to match as an amateur. You know, I never used to give his name. I used to say, I've got a guy here. He's 8-0. Are you up for the fight? And the coach go, yeah. Who is it? And I go, it's Jack Shaw. And I go, I'll get back to you. And the next day, there'd be a reason why somebody couldn't fight him. The IMAFs did us no good at all. Great having them, but it did us. I thought, well, I'm never going to get him an amateur fight now, because he went to the IMAFs, four fights in 3 days. And sorry, let me just turn this off. 4 fights in 3 days, and absolutely trounced everybody, you know. So coming off the back end of that, it was a funny one. You know, the Brave organisation. You've heard of Brave, yeah? The Prince of Bahrain that owns Brave, one of his representatives approached us at the IMAFs once we'd won the title and offered us a contract. So we did have a couple of Skype calls with Bahrain about possibly them sponsoring him and becoming. But I wasn't happy with the terms of the contract. It was great as an up-and-coming fighter, but some of the stuff in there that if he got the UFC made no sense to me. It was all tied into one, you know. They'd give you some funding and fly you out and get you. So we done our own thing. Obviously, the deal came with Cage Warriors. Part of that deal was for Cage Warriors to accept that Jack needed to be on every Welsh card on a televised event, as long as he was winning. They knew what he was capable of. And he's done a great job since, to be honest. So, you know, Cage Warriors was the best thing ever for him. You know, his entire career, he'd done one fight on Pain Pit. The rest of his career was on Cage Warriors, and the exposure and the raising of his profile. You know, it got him a fantastic contract as well for the first contract with the UFC, and that's all down to how the marketing went with the guys at Cage Warriors. So I can't thank them enough.
I've kept an eye on Jack's career since the IMAS, because of I work close with Steve Nightingale, and I sort of kept an eye on that team. But the coming out party for me, watching Jack doing well against these fighters, was his performance against Vaughan Lee, because everyone knew Vaughan was from the UFC.
Yeah.
It was only just over 2 years ago, but it felt like the performance he put on in that fight against Vaughan, which I think he came into that fight as the underdog because of who Vaughan was in his experience and his record. It just made you go, right, this, because I think at the time Nathaniel Wood was around champion, or he was about to be signed, so it might have been about to be vacant.
Yeah.
So he was putting his name in the hat for either a title shot or for the vacant title.
Yeah.
What was it like for you at that point?
Well, if you go back to the fight before that, we travelled to Belgium and we fought a guy called Aiton de Pep, who was 7-0. He was undefeated, and you know, he's a good guy, but Jack made easy work of him. So after the fight, we called out Nathaniel Wood for the Super Saturday show. So Jack was fighting at 65 then, but he's only ever cut in 3 or 4 pound in weight, you know. We'd done a test weight on bantam, and that was easy enough for him to do. So the plan always was, if we have a first round win, we call out Nathaniel Wood, hopefully get the title shot in February on the Super Saturday show. So we call him out. We had a conversation. Pretty much it was like, yeah, okay, we'll do the fight. But then there was a few ifs, buts, and maybes, and they came back to us and said, right, for us to justify a title fight, we'd like you to fight Vaughan Lee. And it's a dangerous fight. You know, Vaughan had more fights in the UFC than Jack had professional fights at the time. Yeah. Southpaw, dangerous, strong, good in every area. Fantastic grappler, good wrestler, good striker. So, you know, I just said, give me 24 hours. You know, we're at that stage of his career where if it's the right fight. We sat down, we had a look. How Jack's. So he's like, I've watched Vaughan all my life. I can beat him, Dad. Let's have the fight. They're going to have to give me a title shot. We sat down and I looked, we agreed the fight. And I still say today, that's his toughest fight so far. But it also showed all the other aspects of his game. It really shone the light on how good a striker he was, because he outstruck Vaughan, I felt, during that bout. His wrestling, you know, he completed every single takedown attempt. And it was a perfect fight apart from a finish, really. But we went, that was one of the few fights I can honestly say that we've gone in there not chasing a stoppage. The game plan was takedown, ground him out, get to the next round. And you know, what I will say about Jack, he'll work to the letter of the law when we put a game plan in place for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Vaughan Lee fight was great. He broke his hand on the back end of that, which put him out because Nathaniel got signed. They offered us a fight then with Graham Boylan in Belgium for the title, but he'd broken his hand, so that was a no-go. I try to think what the next one. So he was 7-0. He was 8-0 after that. Then he was scheduled to fight a Polish guy for the world title. The Polish guy pulled out. Then they give us a German guy. And then the day before the weigh-in, the German guy failed the brain scan. And they brought in a Brazilian at the weight above. You know, one thing I'll say about Jack, you know, Cage Warrior said, look, Jack, the fight's off. We'll pay you your wage, in fairness, you know, and he was on a great contract with them. And he was like, no, listen, I've sold over 1,000 tickets for this show. I need a fight. And to be fair, Ian Dean at 24 hours notice came back with a Brazilian that was fully safe MMA passed, you know, because he's fighting in Brazil. And, you know, with everything to lose, Jack took that fight in front of 4,500 people. But the stars aligned a little bit because then he got to fight for the title then on Cage Warriors 100 in Wales. So it all worked out for the best in the end.
So with Jack's career at that point, he wins the belt. He's doing great. He wins it at 100, defends it at 104. Then, obviously, around the point he won the belt anyway, talks are starting to come in about UFC because once you become a Cage Warriors champion, like you said earlier on, it's most likely you will get signed. The risk that I have seen is you see a lot of Cage Warriors champions that are more reluctant to defend the belts because it's a risk of what happens next. There's a few that it has happened to where they've lost the belt, lost the momentum. Like
you've got to restart then, haven't you? You've got to put another 4 or 5 fights together, winning to get a chance to get signed. You know.
But he did. He won it. He defended it. Then he gets signed. What was that like as a dad as well? Getting.
I'm so proud of him, man. I don't just say because he is my lad. There's nobody works harder. Nobody carries himself better. I think that, you know, if I could put a clone together of a fighter in the gym, it would be molded around Jack, just the way he carries himself in and out of the gym. You know, there's no shit talk with him. The way he commits to training, the way he listens. You know, he's the best fighter at our gym. Yet he still takes advice off every single coach. You know, he doesn't answer back if we say this is what you've got to do. He takes it on board and he does it. Before the UFC signing, you know, we go back again. This is about the mindset of us as a team. When he was 3-0, he was offered a 4-fight deal by the UFC.
Wow.
When Marshman fought on Belfast, they offered him a 4-fight contract to fight on that card against a short notice at 145. You know, and for a young lad, that's a huge thing. And myself and his manager both said, look, it's too much too soon. If they're coming in at 3-0, they're going to be coming back for you in the future.
Yeah.
So we knocked it back. When he'd broken his hand and he couldn't fight Bouland, they came in again. There was a pull-out on one of the UFC cards in the UK, and they contacted us, said, we'd like Jack to fight. We'll offer you a 4-fight deal. And again, so we had to knock that back because he had a broken hand. He'd won the title on Cage Warriors 100. I was in London with Marshman in the March, and I think Jack was due to fight Malone on May, and they came a third time and asked me about signing. And again, it was a big risk, but I just felt it was something that he had to do to put a stamp on his career before he moved on. And I said, would you give us the defense of the title? And again, they say all the right thing. Well, it's a risk. If he loses, it knocks him back 5-6 fights. But, you know, it was one of them ones. And my take was, if he lost him alone, he wasn't ready for the UFC.
Yeah, great point.
So that's my take on these things. You know, if you can't beat the person in front of you in Cage Warriors, you're not ready to take the next step and fight UFC. So we knocked them back, and he did say, listen, mate, nobody's knocked us back 3 times before. But he proved great, because as soon as he won the Malone fight, they came in and they offered him a fantastic contract, which you couldn't say no to then. So it's worked out well for everybody.
I guess sort of waiting for that deal has put you in a stronger position to sort of get the right deal for you, and also solidify Jack as a fighter in the UK. Like, you want to have that reputation, have the pro experience before making the jump to that stage.
The Cage Warriors scene is a fantastic apprenticeship, because particularly when you're main eventing, I mean, the UFC debut was the easiest fight we've had for years. Not so much the competition, but the dealing with the week leading up to it. There was no huge amounts of media. When you're the main event on Cage Warriors, you've got to turn up for filming. You've got to do a video. You've got to turn up on the day, do another video. You've got to meet social media outlets. You've got to take phone calls in the house. You know, there's all this thing that the wraps in it. And obviously, being a Welsh lad, fighting as a Welsh champion on a Welsh event, that adds to the pressure, you know. But when you fight it, when you walk out, if you have a look, guys, I'll send you the link after. There's a video that Dan Hardy's company, Raptors, did.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen it. It's the noise of Jack walking out into the arena, and they're following Jack, and it looks like the way they've done it. They show Jack coming in, then it's as if it's Jack walking the camera.
Right.
And the noise, it's like nothing you've ever heard. Honestly, it's incredible. But these things prepare you for the big stage, because there's nothing worse than getting into the UFC and having stage fright. What Cage Warriors does, it takes that stage fright away. You know, I don't think Jack will ever feel as much pressure as what he's did on Cage Warriors 100, fighting Mike Ekundayo for the title in front of 4,500 sold-out arena on his own patch on the biggest event in Cage Warriors history.
Oh, of course.
And he just took it in his stride. So I say it's a great... I got a young lad with me now, Oban Elliott, and Oban's destined for great things. Oban's going to be a real star in the UFC. And he's like one of these characters. I think we could probably get him in 5-6 fights, but I keep saying to him, you've got to do your apprenticeship. Get used to walking out in front of 4,000 fans at the Ice Arena. Get used to traveling to London and fighting your a Vaughan Lee type fighter in front of an alien crowd. Yeah. All these things, it's all part of the apprenticeship. It's all great experience for when you take that step into the UFC for the first time.
No, definitely. As a coach as well, like sort of pre-fight jitters and sort of the anxiety around sort of just competing in general, do you have like a process that you go through with your athletes, or is it sort of, do they have their own little rituals that they go for?
No, I've got quite a wide range of characters, so they all have their own little rituals, and we just tend to work around them. I mean, back in the early days, I was getting nervous for Edwards and Marshman, you know, and then it was tenfold when Jack started fighting, you know. But no, you know, we've got a very simple format on the day. We turn up, we get changed, we have a little shadow box, we have a stretch, we have some pads, we have you know, there's nothing major. It is what it says on the tin. It's a warm up. It's getting the sweat. It's getting the blood pumping. Positive talking at them. Positive talking, and just getting them ready. You know, physically and mentally for that moment when they step out in front of that big crowd.
Oh, fantastic.
I think Simon's the same. I think we spoke about this on the podcast in the past. We've both fought in the cage. We've both done numerous jiu-jitsu comps, and I knew a long time ago I was never going to be anywhere decent. I knew what my eventual thing would be, promoting stuff like that and doing the podcast. I'm a lot better at that. Same with Simon. He always knew he wanted to be a coach. We both discussed. I think we met each other 3 weeks after we both started training. We started training within weeks of each other. And back then he was like, I want to be a coach. I want to have my own gym. And I was like, I want to run my own events. It didn't have to be MMA at the time. It could have been anything. Yeah. I was good at promoting. And we're both doing what we love. What I found from the experience of competing that I passed down, and even though it wasn't great, is when I have the guys on my shows at MMA where they turn around and go, oh, I want to be in the UFC. But then when you want to do an on-camera thing with them or anything to do with crowd or sponsorship or anything like that, they shut down, and you have to literally mentor them and speak to them and say, you need to get used to this, because if you want to be UFC champion, they're not going to sign you if you've not got a personality. You need to have a personality. You need to have a following. So if you're not selling tickets or you're not advertising yourself, you won't get looked at. And that's a selfish, business-minded thing. Like you said about the UFC earlier, they won't come to Wales. It's harder to come to Wales then because of the arenas and stuff. Yeah. But now Jack's going to put them in a position where they're going to have to find to do something.
I just genuinely don't know where they put it though, Jake, because the Ice Arena full capacity will hold 4,500. And it's a brilliant environment. You know, you go there, you think you're in front of 40,000. You know, the noise they make, it's a real partisan crowd. But where it is and the hotels around it, you know, the logistics, you've got a flight, you know, there's no like direct flights from America to Cardiff, so it would have to be to one of the English airports and then taxi them in. Motorpoint Arena, I think that will hold 5,000 is the maximum they've done for a boxing event. But like when you're there, like I've had guys fight in the Motorpoint Arena, and the changing room facilities are not great because it's a theatre. Then if you go to an Ice Arena, the changing rooms are great because they're big, because they're used to having 20 bloody hockey players or whatever changing in there, so you've got plenty of spaces. But I just don't know where they would put it. Motorpoint would be the one, I think, but it's whether they would come there for the size of the venue, you know. I think it would be a brilliant thing because we've got the two Jacks from my gym. Brett's training with me now. You've got John Phillips. You've got a lot of young and up-and-comers. You've got Mason Jones, Cage Warriors champion. He would make the step to fight in Wales. You've got Oban Elliott, I believe. young lads like Ben Ellis and that coming through. Got experienced guys like Josh Reed, a couple of wins for Josh Reed. He can be knocking on the UFC door. So financially, they wouldn't have to outlay a huge amount of money on flights and things, because domestically, we could probably fill up half the card between British fighters.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully, if Jack gets a couple of wins, it puts us in a position where, when I'm negotiating his next contract, I can drop it in that we need something in Wales. But I won't get above my station just yet.
Could be part of the new contract. Build an arena.
Yeah.
But it's good to hear, and we do want to get Jack on at some point in due course, maybe leading to his next fight. And so I don't want to really touch on his career, talked about him too much, even though we could probably spend hours on it because it's a great career so far. Obviously, recently we had UFC London, even though it got cancelled, and you had Marshman and both Jacks on there. Do you have any others on there?
For London?
Yes.
No, just the two Jacks. Two Jacks. Brett was matched the following month in America, but that got pulled as well. So I'm hoping to get him on this fight island. That's being floated out of there.
I love the sound of the fight island. It just sounds like full on Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I know. We've had chats with them, but we've no idea where it is. They're still not releasing. What part of the world it's in. So we need these things, because if we agree to a fight, we've got to determine whether we go out 5 days before, 10 days before, depending where in the world it is. So
yeah.
They need to.
I've got this theory that it's going to be like some sort of resort where they sort of build their own arena, build hotels, and it's like fans can fly in to watch That's my theory behind it, but
I've got a gut feeling it'll be the Middle East, because they've got the finances to do something like that. They built a purpose-built arena for Khabib, didn't they? So. Yeah. Whether it's somewhere, again, I've heard so many rumours. I've heard it's off the coast of Brazil. I've heard Japan. I've heard Middle East. I've heard Dubai. I've heard Saudi Arabia. I've had about six different people, message me and saying, this is where it is. Nobody knows. I mean, our manager doesn't know. I've spoken to numerous guys in the UFC that are being lined up for the fights in July, and none of them have been told where it is either.
It's weird because everyone's expecting it to be July 11th. That's sort of the date that's being thrown around. Then I heard yesterday through MMA Junkie that it's June 25th. Then I heard this morning that it's the end of July. I don't think Simon, we just discussed this on Tuesday, Simon thinks that there'll be a lot of these fight islands. I think once this lockdown sort of period ends around the world, I don't think you'll really see it. You might see one a year.
I can tell you that it'll be the 11th, 18th and 25th will be Fight Island.
You all 3 in a row?
Yeah.
Wow. Of July, I presume.
Yeah, July, yeah.
Wow.
So inside knowledge there. Thanks, Richard.
Right.
So
I'm not saying anything else.
That's fine. That's fine. We wouldn't put it to you off camera. So we'll touch back on Cage Warriors and, like you say, the apprenticeship and how well they've done. What's it like to work with like Graham and Ian Dean and that sort of the team around there?
I've always got on well with them. Even years and years ago when like Edwards was my first fighter to get a multi-fight deal with them, so I signed Edwards up as a young lad. Marshman, McDonough, the majority of my coaching is at the higher level has been on Cage Warriors events, or I've been to a man with them in the Middle East in Jordan. I had Edwards fighting out there, and I've always got on well with them. Me and Graham got on well. We're cut from the same cloth. We're very black and white in our approach. There's no bullshit. He'll say things which offend people, but give me that every day of the week if it's honest and what he believes, rather than somebody beating around the bush. So, we have our moments where we have our little niggles, me and Graham, but we get on really well. We've got a really good, healthy relationship. He's somebody I respect a lot, and someone I consider a friend now as well. We've known each other a long time. We're in contact weekly. But for me, he does, he's like Marmite. People either love him or hate him, Graham. But for me, there's nobody works harder for the fighters. Sometimes his directness can offend and upset people, but I wouldn't change that with him for the world. And, what can you say about Ian Dean? Ian, he's one of the great minds in MMA. Me and Dan Hardy were talking about this the other day, where if the UFC ever needed a matchmaker, he would slide in there, and the quality and the level of the matchmaking would not change at all. He's like an encyclopedia. I mean, if I need any sort of information on a fighter that I'm struggling to get hold of, he's the first person I contact, because within the hour I've got everything. I've got everything sent to me.
It's a great point you make about Ian Dean, because it was like when the UFC acquired like the WEC and also Strikeforce, they acquired Sean Shelby through WEC, and then they had an understudy for Joel Silver, and them two sort of run the ship now in relation to their matchmaking, depending on what divisions. Ian's great at that, and like you say before, getting the Brazilian last minute notice, that sort of, it doesn't get vocalized as much of how hard that is as a job. You matchmake yourself, I've matchmade, Simon's done a bit. It's that stressful, especially the closer it gets to a fight, because you are limited, and especially at certain weight divisions like your flyweights or your heavyweights or your female fighters, trying to find some last minute for them, it's a stress upon itself.
Oh yeah, he's the most important part of the Cage Warriors machine. But you know, you could pull different individuals that got different jobs out and replace them, and they you know, you may get somebody do the job as well or not as well. But if you pull, you know, you're gonna have your work cut out finding somebody with his MMA brain and his ability to, you know. Another thing me and Dan was saying is, like, you'll put a fight together, and then when you start watching, you think, oh, he's a genius. Look how well matched they are. Look at the stat. You know, he's got a really good eye of thinking X would match up well against Y. You know, whereas Y might not be so good against Z, even though that's a more appealing fight. You know, he's really good at putting good, strong matches together. And as I said, he's got such a knowledge and a network around him in Europe. As you said, he can pull fights off at 24. I've seen him do it no end of times, you know, when somebody's pulled out the day before.
You mentioned about Graham being Marmite, and from the outside looking in, I completely understand where you're coming from with that. But one thing, and you will know this from the tenure of how long you've been doing events and how long you've been in the sport, is Cage Warriors right now, anyone that's involved in that sort of only been training sort of the last 4 or 5 years, this sort of generation, this era, is spoiled, because people seem to forget, I think it was around 5 years ago when Graham acquired the Cage Warriors banner, and obviously he was working with it beforehand, how much hard work that he went quiet for just over a year, I think it was, bought it, put it back up, propped it back up, the foundations, everything. And the amount of work that took, people seem to forget that when it was quiet for that year to 2 years, things started to fall apart. Fighters didn't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah, you're right. Funny enough, I had one of the memories come up on my Facebook page last week about it, and there were people a lot. It was like a couple of posts on there about complaining, when is Cage Warriors coming back? You know, they all saying, you don't know where you got it till it's gone. What they do, they provide you with a UFC experience, I say, you know, because it's a televised event. There's all the lights, the announcers, you know, everything about it. The referees, the judges, all UFC standard, big crowds, big arenas. And, you know, probably Graham lost money hand over foot in the early days before he ended up getting the Fight Pass deal and the BT Sports deal. But he's been a breath of fresh air, I think. You know, he's professionalised the sport with the safe MMA side of things. And say what you like, he does put the fighters, you know, he puts the fighters first. He manages out Jack, and I would never want another manager. You know, he works his ass off for the fighters, as I said. And that's whether he's managing them or just promoting them as a Cage Warriors fighter. But he's a great guy. He's somebody that, you know, I work really, really well with. So I've got nothing but positives to say about him.
One thing I have noticed about Graham is, and I'm just going to use it as an example with regards to Paddy Pimblett, the amount of media and buzz that he was creating, he put so much pressure on himself, especially in the Liverpool area. And then he got that loss after he got the belt and stuff like that. It was that much pressure on him. I think Graham and the Cage Warriors sort of recognised that more as a media and said, right, we can't put him back on Liverpool right now because it could end his career. We're going to just put him on the London shows. And not a lot of people would have seen that, but I recognised it as that was to make sure that he stays for as long as possible, because he is a good and great fighter, and the UFC could still be in his future. And like you said, that one loss could knock you back 5 or 6. Definitely that case with Paddy. He could have just sat out and waited for a UFC contract. He has the following, he has the enthusiasm, the mindset, the skill. But sometimes, and especially at the Cage Warriors level, they're that well matched that someone's got to lose. I think that needs to be recognised more, because Paddy seems to be more comfortable, less pressure, and that could make him grow, because he's still young, just like Jack is.
Yeah, I think he's 24, Paddy, isn't he? You know, people think he's a lot older because he's been fighting pro, I think, since
he was 21 for about a decade.
He hasn't aged, does he? He still looks the same. No, they're not afraid to have those conversations. I think our Jack was 4-0, and we wanted the Common Day fight, and Common was on a 7-fight win streak, you know. And Graham rang me and Ian, and both said, listen, we think that this is a step too far, you know, it's a bit early, you know, maybe. And I'm like, listen, I've done my homework on this kid. I've watched him inside out. His style matches up well. But even though they give me the final say, they're not afraid to have those hard conversations and put their point over what they are thinking, you know. So, yeah, you're right. Paddy's a perfect example about how they've managed him well and have taken a bit of the pressure off him by removing him from that glare of the Liverpool crowd, you know. Because, you know, he says he doesn't feel pressure, Paddy, but he's a young lad and everybody's going to feel it, you know. It's that expectation, that wanting to do well in front of your home crowd. It does add to the pressure on the day of a fight, doesn't it?
Of course.
I can imagine as well, there's that sort of element of not wanting to show a sign of weakness because you're a professional fighter. So you kind of need somebody there to take that decision away from you sometimes.
Yeah, spot on, Sam.
So what's next, Richard? Obviously, I know COVID in the last sort of 4 or 5 months haven't gone really to plan. But what's next for yourself? Are you... Oh, I know Cage Warriors this week announced that they're back in September. I presume it would be down in London. What's next for you? Are you now in the midst of planning to maybe do one behind closed doors, or do you feel like Cage Warriors Wales as an academy isn't in that position?
The academy show, we're not going to... The televised events you'll get away with doing behind closed doors, but you know, running a promotion yourself, if you've got no ticket sales, that's where the money comes in. All my academy shows are based around ticket sales.
Yeah.
You know, I pay for all the fights, all the staff, everything comes out of that income, and whatever's left then, you know, is a profit we make. Without any ticket sales, it's impossible. We can't put one on. So I've spoken to Graham. We're probably going to do a behind closed doors Wales event, hopefully by the end of this year. But that'll be one of the main cards on the televised event.
Okay.
So as a promoter, same as you guys, until the government give us any sort of clear direction, because at the moment it's all ifs, buts, maybe. I get more. The more releases they do, the more confused I get. You know, they've said about pro athletes being able to train now. So what I've done, we've had the pro team in this week. Every one of them had a COVID test. Fortunately, everyone has come back clear. One of the coaches has had it and has developed antibodies, but is clear now. Okay. So, you know, I'm comfortable with that we can start the behind closed doors cardio sessions and maybe some technical bag work and whatnot with the distancing. You know, but you've got to be so careful. Like people say, oh, you'll be all right, shut the doors. But, you know, I know of gyms that have been spot checked by the police this week, you know, boxing gyms. There's a pro boxing gym not far from me and the police have turned up there. And to be fair, they're just doing what you're allowed to do, cardio sessions, you know. So it's one of those ones, I think, you can't expect fighters to fight until they can actually grapple, box, and wrestle. You know, it's unfair to say. And like my guys are always, you know, Oban Elliott tells you he's 24 hours ready, but the rest of the team you need, even if you're training regular, for a short notice, at least 4 weeks notice is what I live with. We always do a 10-week camp. The difference with a 4 weeks notice fight is if the boys are in the gym training 5 days a week, twice a day anyway.
Yep.
At the moment, nobody's training. So we're going to need a 12-week camp, I believe, to get ourselves ready. Hopefully there'll be a bit more release now with the government with the pro athletes. If they give us permission, particularly with this testing. And one of our sponsors has bought the proper official medical testing kits where you prick the finger in the blood. So as long as we can do that on a weekly basis and keep the circle close and they're all professionals, I'm hopeful by the end of this month they may be saying, right, you can get back to contact, and then we're ready for fights then within 10 weeks.
Yeah, so that's a tough part. They've not really made it clear what class as a professional athlete or an elite athlete. They've not really made it clear of...
They've said about this elite status now with the jiu-jitsu, haven't they? But, you know, how do you decide who's elite and who's not? You
just sign them to a professional £1 contract, you know, professional.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly. And also as well, how are they going to police this? You know, because sooner or later, guys, you know, because like myself, we made a massive investment in October. A lot of money we put into that gym, you know, to make it look the way it is. Sooner or later, I've got to say, listen, guys, I've got to have some income coming back in, you know, because at the moment we've got nothing coming in. And we're trying to ride it out as best we can. You know, I've got a lot of guys that are still helping out with the memberships, and we're covering the cost of the building while it's empty. But sooner or later, you know, like so you guys, I mean, we've got to start earning money, otherwise, you know, we're going to fold. So how are they going to police it? If I say to you, saying, well, bring a group of lads, then we'll have it behind closed, how are they going to police it?
Yeah.
You know, so it's either they come out and go, right, you do it at your own risk, get your testing done, put these procedures in place and crack on. We need some direction, and we're not getting it off the government at the moment, I feel.
That makes sense to do, sort of like having like saying to like contact sport clubs, being like, okay, you've got to test everybody on arrival, temperature, the sort of the more common symptoms, and if someone does come down with it, you've got to let everybody else know within that session. They can either get tested to prove they've not got it or isolate for 14 days. Because the issue that I've got is with it is, how can you tell your member base that because they're not classed as an elite athlete that they can't train, but these people can?
Agree. That's exactly the predicament I'm in as well, you know. So the majority of my income, I say this to everybody, I've got 1% of professionals and 99% which are hobbyists and use the fitness area. So the majority of students are not guys that are going to go and fight in the UFC. They're the very, very minority. Same as the jiu-jitsu level. The people on EBIs or your Polaris, they're the 1%.
Yeah.
You know, that's a bit of common sense. You know, we're all fit. We're all sensible. I'd like to think that none of my students would turn up if they had any of the symptoms or felt they did. Let the gym self-regulate. My take is this: if us three by here now decide we want to go to the gym and have a grappling session, we're all adults. We should be able to make that choice. If I go, sorry lads, it's not for me, I'll make the choice to self-isolate or stay away. But leave it to the individual. You know, there's no end game here at the moment, and that's my worry is I don't see anything coming up soon for us either, because there's a little bit of the blind leading the blind where the government's concerned. I think they're having that many different people, you know, giving them details of, you know, don't take ibuprofen. I remember that. Don't take ibuprofen. It'll there's rumours that it'll help you catch the COVID. They're advertising it yesterday on the TV. Ibuprofen and paracetamol. Hang on now, what have I missed? The last time I listened to the television, you told me we couldn't take it.
It's a great point, because I know Wales and your ministers and stuff are a lot more strict. Well, yeah, more strict because Wales seem to be following around 4 weeks behind what England are doing. I think your schools have announced they're open on June 29th, so it's around 4 weeks after we started this week, which must be frustrating, because if you see, like, for argument's sake, England says jiu-jitsu gyms and normal gyms can open on August 1st, but then Wales are like, we're going to wait, it might be October 1st. You're like...
Yeah.
Like, for once, we'll probably go, I want to be English.
Yeah, you're right, man. And a lot of it with the Welsh Assembly is it's a strong Labour base there. And I say it how it is, they do anything to go against the Tory government, you know, so there's a lot of politics involved in that as far as I'm concerned. You know, so...
Why should we have to be in the middle of a political argument? That's the frustrating thing. I think I made a point the other day on Facebook. I was watching sort of like the PMQs, which I'm not really into politics, but I just like watching it because it seems to be my highlight of the day because it's funny. You've got one question where they turn around and they're like, why are you opening schools? It's not safe yet. And then the next question is, well, you're going to stop people going abroad. That's people going to lose out on family holidays. It's like, what are you...
Those same people that are saying they don't want the schools open are the same ones that are at the beach when the sun's out. It's like, make your mind up.
It's absolute madness. I mean, none of it makes sense to me, honestly. I get more confused with the day. The more press releases and the more I watch it just confuses the life out of me. I mean, like you lads have said, right? We've had to stop people coming into the Wales holiday resorts the last couple of weeks because the English guys can just travel across the border because you're within your rights to roam now. Why should Wales be 4 weeks behind the rest of the UK? It doesn't make sense to me.
No.
It's supposed to be the United Kingdom. Get united with your politics and let's get it
sorted. Each other, aren't they? And
yeah. You know, you can wander around the supermarket. You know, I could pick up a tin of beans that you might have picked up 2 minutes earlier to have a look, you know, the date on it. And there's so many variances and variables. There's too many inconsistencies for me. You know, if I want to have a grapple, let me go and have a grapple. And if I pick it up, that's my choice. It's through and I'll self-isolate if I get it. It's as simple as that.
People seem to forget as well that right at the beginning, the whole point of a lockdown was to like save the NHS, stop it from overloading. And everyone's like, we're still having this many deaths, we're still having this many positive tests. But we're past a peak, the peak that they don't think it'll ever get as bad as that. It might increase again, but they're at a point now where they put all the structural things in place, like the Nightingale hospitals in the north and south and Scotland and stuff. Everything's in place now that if there was a second wave worse than the first peak,
it's ready for them. Yeah.
It's ready, and that's what it should be for. And people are saying, oh, but I don't think we should go out now, even though everything's getting lifted. Well, that's your choice. You don't have to go out. That is, it's not like they're holding you by the neck going, we've told you can go out, you can go out.
Yeah.
You don't have to. And that's the problem. I've seen a lot of people being hypocrites saying, I don't agree with it, but then there's photos of them in the gardens of each other. But their argument would be, but they've told them we can be in the gardens. So it's like, well, which side of the government do you want to listen to? All of it, none of it, or some of it?
Yeah. And, this incident in America is awful what's happened, all of us will agree it's disgusting what happened to that poor bloke. But we're allowing protests. And, I'm looking at the news and it's 3,000-4,000 people. So are you telling me none of those people are at risk? You're allowing a protest. You're telling us that we can't have 20 guys pop to the gym and have a grapple, but we've got 6,000 people shoulder to shoulder for 8 hours doing a hot day or walking around. It's madness. There's no consistency. That's my biggest criticism, is that the approach isn't consistent in any way or form. Until they sit down around the table and work something, they've got to allow us back sooner or later. There's businesses up when we going bust left, right, and centre.
That's the crazy thing. Like, I know you said before that you put so much money in the transition to Shaw Mixed Martial Arts Academy. I'm the same. I literally, if I've got brand new mats for Empire coming in the country today, I started that investment back at the end of last year. If I knew this was coming, I would have held off at least another year or so. But no one's seen it coming. It's happened. You need to get on with it. But I feel like now we're at a point where it should be, maybe from July onwards, it should be people's choice. You've got rid of the wave. You've putting things in place, like at your gym with your sponsors, putting everything in place for you guys. I'm the exact same. Simon's gym, the gyms that I work with, they are hungry and chomping at the bit to either be competing at jiu-jitsu or fighting in that cage. I literally, like you with Cage Warriors Wales, and that's back. You'll be inundated with fighters.
Well, we had to pull our show a week before we were given notice. A week before, so we lost money on that. But also the income. I haven't had any income coming in this year off any event. I had January, February, and March income coming in on the gym. Yep. No income off show, so it's a big deficit for me this year.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I still work. I still work in a school, so I've got a wage coming in. But at the same time, if I'd given my notice in at Christmas, I'd have been in a world of problems.
That's what I did. My exact thing.
Yeah.
I had in my notice in my 9 to 5, and you have to pull strings and make things work and move things around. But
you just got to ride it out. There's nothing else we can do, Jake. Ride it out.
Exactly. So what's next for you then in relation to obviously Jack and you guys in the UFC and Cage Warriors? Is it anything that you were, even this was in place with lockdown, is anything that you're planning now, ready to come out of it?
Well, Fight Island will be the next thing for us.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Jack is pretty much confirmed. I'm hoping to get Brett and Marshman on there as well. It's just waiting for them to say. The moment they say contact sports, is good to go, we can start planning, can't we? But I've got no plans at the moment, Jake, because particularly with Wales, like you said, we're so far behind the rest of the UK. I just do not know when they're going to open the gates again and say, right, go and start teaching martial arts. Okay, we're allowing now public events. Because I don't see us being able to do public events until probably March of next year, I don't think. Wow. I don't see us having any MMA events with a crowd until March minimum, I think.
I can see it all being like sort of televised behind closed doors.
Which is great. Which is great sign for the big events.
Oh, that's
the likes of like Jake and myself that run a grassroots level show.
Oh, of course, it's scary, and like they've not really offered any alternatives.
No,
like if they offered an alternative where it's sort of maximum capacity for the events, or
give us something, some guideline to work with, but there's nothing.
Yeah.
Because I think maybe, Richard, you're in the same thing. If you know you can put on an event which at least we're confident that it would break even, I think we would do that keep the momentum going.
I started running into clubs at the gym. At the last one, we had 100 competitors there.
Oh, wow.
And I've had to cancel it twice. I've rescheduled it. I've rescheduled it now for December. But I think I'll probably end up having a load of guys just using it because they're going to want some sort of form of competition once we have the nod. But I don't know. Let's just get back to normality, guys. It's breaking me. You've depressed me now. I was enjoying this podcast. You put me on a downer.
So let's pick it up lens of positiveness. So you've got the guys in the UFC. Fight Island's next, which is probably going to be phenomenal, and probably again as part of your career and your experience, something that you will probably never forget.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a part of history, isn't it? I said this to Jack. It's one of those moments in your career that you can't turn down because people will talk about it in 10, 20, 30, 40 years time, won't they? And to be part of that, I think will be something special.
Do you like the fact that there's so much unknown and secrecy about it, or?
No, I'm OCD. I'm a planner. Me, I like everything. I like a schedule. This has brought me the lockdown. I'm OCD with routine, you know.
Yeah.
So I like for you to say you're flying on this date on this airline to this airport. You'll be picked up at this time, dropped off at this hotel. You'll have this training facility, this training. You do. I like a schedule, and the unknown unsettles me a little bit because I want to be planning now. We'll be traveling out 10 days before. We're traveling out 5 days before. What's the temperature going to be in this country? Do we need to start turning the heating up at sessions so you're getting used to fighting in a certain environment with the climate and things like this? You know,
is it going to be outside? Is the sun going
to be outside? Yeah. Generally, you know, there's talk of it being an outside event as well. So, you know, we have to pop up the Welsh Valley Mountains and have the mosquitoes bite us up there while we're training. I don't know. Let's just have some information on it. You know, I've been told it's not going to be too long. We should have some info soon.
Yeah. That's cool.
Imagine like you guys would get the information soon, and they'd probably try and keep the mystique around it for the general public.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. We have a clause, a non-disclosure clause. We've had those before with certain things.
Yeah.
And people, you know, you can't release it because they know where it's come from, and they can cut your contract and things like that. So, in all probability, that's probably what will happen.
Because I think as a fan, I'm enjoying the sort of mystique bit around the event. I'm enjoying the sort of knowing it's coming, but not knowing the how and the where and whatnot. It's like fascinating me as a fan.
I love Daniel Cormier every time he's on a UFC or he's on the Hawani podcast of how frustrated he's getting that he doesn't know. And considering he doesn't know and how close he is to Rogan, White, everyone like that. Yeah. And they've even spoke to like Paige Van Zandt, who's confirmed for the card. She doesn't even have a clue. She's asking everyone what's going on. I just think that's the funny thing because I feel like, obviously, more so the UFCs recently and how last minute these cards are getting put together. Like we've had a few catch weights recently. A lot of them are chomping at the bit to go, like what you said before, you want the 4 weeks, you want the 8 weeks, you want the 12 weeks, where a lot of guys will be like, just tell me the week before I'm going to be fighting, or you tell me I'm fighting in May. I don't care what date it's on. I'm just going to be ready all of May.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of it's going to be for quite a while. And
I think so.
This weekend's card is not, and the one from, obviously I know Woodley and stuff like that, but they're not stacked as the free back-to-back cards. But on paper, like I think it was last weekend or the weekend before, the fights were that well matched. I have no clue who was going to take most of them, and that's one thing it is producing.
Well, the Fight Island is going to be the only option for the British guys because the USA are not handing out work visas at the moment. So we've been told that the States for August is a no-go. So unless you've already got a working visa.
Wow, that's something to note. So do you feel like maybe, like your Conor McGregor and stuff, I don't know where he's actually at, whether he's in Dublin or America, where he's staying at the minute, but maybe, like you say, the working visa, maybe he would have to go to Fight Island. Maybe that's where you see Khabib, but obviously with Ramadan, that he sort of doesn't do the summer months. Maybe is it just, that's why obviously you're just getting the American, the Canadian fighters at the minute?
Yeah, that's why at the moment, yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
That makes a lot of sense, that.
Let's try and wrap this up then. Let's keep it on a positive note. Is there anything that you want to talk about? Anything that you feel like we've missed or anything?
No, not at all, mate. I mean, I think we just all want a bit of normality, don't we? Get back to seeing events on around the UK, get the guys back training regular, and carry on producing, quality young athletes that are going to make their name on the biggest stage eventually. But I just want some routine, guys. That's what I'm looking for, a bit of routine. What I do want to touch on, when you had Howell on, he didn't mention, but the reason I got so much time for Howell, when old Jack was born, he was born premature. So my wife and Jack ended up 4 weeks in an intensive care unit in hospital. He was 6 weeks early. Howell was, it was a ridiculous number. It was like 18 weeks early, and he was less than a pound in weight when he was born.
Wow. So
every day I would go and visit my wife and Jack in hospital, because she stayed in. You know, you'd have conversations where the nurse say, "Oh, Howell's had a bad night. There's a good chance he could pass away today." And my wife will say to anybody to me, he is an absolute miracle of nature. The lad should not be alive, you know. And to see how he's grown, and like, you know, I listened to the stories you're telling about me saying, "You're not going to do the MC and you'll mess it up," because they were young kids at the time, you know. Yeah. So regularly borrow the mic and But if you'd seen him as a kid, I mean, even at like 18 months, 2 years of age, his mother's pushing him around in a pram with pipes up his nose and an oxygen tank in the back of on the back of the pram. You know, he was touch and go for a real.
Wow.
You know, he's a fit, well guy. You know, he turns up, he trains well. He's a big, strong ox of a lad. But I'm just so pleased that he's doing so well with the MCing, because he's a lovely kid with it. You know, when the opportunity came for it, like I give him a couple of academy shows. He did well on that. I had an MC that was regular who couldn't do one event. Owl done so well, so I've let Owl carry on with it. He stood in as he told for co-chess, but then like Graham's rung me and said, "Look, we're looking for a new MC. Do you think your lad would fold and crumble?" I said, "No, he won't crumble. You know, give him a chance and he'll get better." You know, and Graham and the cage what he's seen think the world of him now. But yeah, he was a pound born and really shouldn't even be alive today. But just a story for you guys to be aware of.
That is a really cool story.
Wow.
So, with Hugh and Jack growing up, were they? So I presume that being in the same hospitals and stuff, you got to know the parents, and then they sort of grew up that way.
We live next door to each other, believe it or not. Now,
wow.
For the last 6 years, we live next door.
That's that's what things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
So we normally wrap it up with a quick fire questions. Simon, have you got yours ready?
Yeah,
I do.
So, Simon, you can start.
Start off with an easy one. Let's go Family Guy or Simpsons.
You're going to hate me, lads. I've never watched either. Jack's got all the box sets for two of them, but I've never really watched any of them. If I was going to pick, I'd say Simpsons.
Yeah.
Just from the glimpses I've seen.
A city break or a beach holiday?
Oh, beach holiday. I hate the cities. You know, when we're fighting in London, it breaks me. I hate going to London.
Fight Island all the way.
Yeah. Are you more of a takedown guy or are you more of a guard player?
Oh, watch your mouth, Simon. Takedowns all the time. Come on.
I think the last few guests we've had on have been guard pullers, and we've just been
quite a few guard players.
No, you get tormented in my gym if you pull guard.
Oh no, man! That's a training with Coach Cam. There's like a no guard pulling rule. So I love it.
So, I guess being the level you are in jiu-jitsu, gi or no gi?
Gi for me, just because I've got older now and I can slow the youngsters down. I'm great for the first couple of rows with the pro guys, you know, at no gi, but they're too fit and my body can't take it. With the gi, I can pin and use that old man's strength and keep them on their back for a bit longer.
There we go. So, have you got a athlete that you sort of watch to for like inspiration then?
Outside of the gym, yeah. Yeah, for me, probably GSP.
Nice.
Yeah, just the fact that he trains all aspects of the art, trains in the gi as a pro. You know, there's a lot of. I'm a great believer in pro fighters training in the gi at least once a week in camp. Outside of camp, they have to do 2 or 3 sessions because it refines the technique. That's just my own take. Everybody's different. But GSP, just the way that he's a complete martial artist. But again, I just love the way he carries himself outside of the cage as well.
Oh, fantastic.
I guess it leads on to one of our questions. Silver or GSP?
The greatest ever?
If there was a fight as well, sort of an all-round question.
GSP.
GSP.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think Silver tainted himself a little bit with the substance misuse bans. And I mean, you know, one thing you can say about GSP, he looks like he's juiced to the max, but he's never ever failed a test, and he's been tested as much as anybody. So yeah, GSP for me.
Oh, nice, good answer. Are you more of a Pride guy or UFC guy?
used to love the pride, but for me, UFC, and again, I'm a great believer in fighting clean. So, you know, I've spoken to coaches when I've been on my trips to the UFC that have had fighters in pride, and the contract always said your fighter will not be tested for steroids in bold lettering. So, you know, it was like juice up and let him go in pride, wasn't it? But no, for me, UFC, just for the whole package, the USADA testing is the best of the best. So UFC for me, but only by a fine line. I love watching Pride. I used to love watching Pride.
No, fantastic.
So when you're a fan and you've got no one involved in the fight that you're watching, do you prefer to see a war or a 5 or 3 round technical bout?
I think war. I think we've all got that human nature to think, go on, boys, slug it out. If it's one of my lads, might know they got a fight. But yeah, I'd say war for a 5 round ball fest.
And then on the same sort of note, are you more of a? Would you rather watch like an MMA match with a grappling, like a really technical grappling exchange, or more of a striking exchange?
Grappling.
Yeah.
Not more of a question of one or the other, but in the jiu-jitsu game, obviously you chose GSP and MMA side. In the jiu-jitsu game, is there anyone that you look up to, anyone that's sort of been an idol for you and you like to follow?
In jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Two for me, obviously Hickson. I just think, you know, when you listen to all the greats and everybody saying that when he was fit and healthy, that nobody could do anything with him, and just the aura that comes with him. So Hickson for one, and Marcelo is the other one.
Yeah, nice. 2 very good ones. And last one for me, what do you do like with your free time when you're not training or coaching?
I've got a caravan down in West Wales, so I tend to go down there and just shut off with my wife. I'm a bit of a bore to be honest, because my passion is the martial arts. So I just like to shut off. We go down there, we'll go and have some food, go for a walk on the beaches, and just to chill out, because I've got quite a hectic lifestyle. So the caravan gives me an escape for 8 months of the year.
Yeah, you mentioned it early on about the circles which your guys have. They eat, they train, they do go on holidays together. The circles of the social side of what you create through this friends, technically class as family, it puts off loads of tangents. So you could be speaking to someone in the gym and like, oh, what are you doing this evening? And then that still becomes part of the jiu-jitsu or MMA or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Having extra hobbies is a rarity. It's very difficult. So I can see having the caravan is sort of your escape. So it's cool to have that. The last one from me, because it's a big one, Richard. Fork in your left hand or your right hand when you eat?
If I've got to cut something up in my left, if it's just a meal I can pick at in my right.
Fair enough. Before we let you go, then, is anyone you want to thank? Any sponsors? Anything you want to give out a shout out to?
Where do I start with that? So thanks to the main sponsors I've got: Tatami Fightwear, B&B Garage, and Batch Plant. All those guys look after the team as a whole, not as individuals. And just thanks to everybody at the team, you know, fighters, coaches, and the supporters. You know, we've built up a really good community fan base, and they supported us from day dot, and they still do to this day. So that's pretty much it, guys.
Awesome. Well,
thank you.
Not only now I'm looking forward to Fight Island generally, because your guys are on it more than I on the card. Can't wait to see it being announced. But yeah, thank you for your time. Thanks for being on.
No, thanks, lads. I've enjoyed it. Good to chew the fat and break up some of these mundane days I'm having to go through at the moment.
Hopefully me and Sty will get down to your gym at one point, or maybe even to a Cage Warriors Wales.
More than welcome. Come on down. Be more than welcome.
Awesome. Enjoy your time. Enjoy your weekend and whatever information you find out, and prepping the guys for UFC Fight Island. And we'll
I think just keep your eyes peeled. I think the next week or so we'll start having some things released. Probably not just my guys in general. They've released their Gastelum's fighting Hermanson, isn't he, on the July 18th? He's the main event there.
Yeah,
it's all but done, isn't it? Till against
Whittaker, isn't it? Is it till
Whittaker? Yeah, for the 25th. So there's some good fights coming out now. So
I'm looking forward to it.
I think any of those 3 cards will be good cards to be involved in.
Yeah,
awesome. Well, we'll keep an eye out. Stay safe, pal, and we'll speak soon.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Speak soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Lads.